And we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. It's dawn of the final day before the decision from the CMA, so everybody's on pins and needles ready for it.
Yeah, it's a step closer to all being done with. And when it comes to like gaming topics, we have a lot to cover. It's exciting because I think people are getting really fed up with the whole Activision thing by now. But it's getting spicy, and we've got some stuff to talk about later in the show. But before we get into the main topics, have you been playing anything interesting this week?
Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of everything. I've been playing some Bejeweled 3 as kind of just a mindless puzzler game. I love that, and I played some Candy Crush to see what it's all about, because presumably that'll be joining the family soon, so I thought I'd check it out. I've enjoyed it. Some Mighty Doom, Power Wash Simulator, hopping into Ghostwire Tokyo some more, and then obviously Jedi Survivor. As soon as it launches, I'm all in on that, and all other game functions stop when that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I recently just finished a new playthrough of Jedi Fallen Order. It's an incredible game. Like, I advertise that game all the time on Twitter because I think everyone needs to play it. It's such a good game. And, when you do your second playthrough on New Game Plus, you kind of notice more things, like more connections to the prequel trilogy with all the hidden Republic, or I should say clone trooper helmets. Really cool stuff. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's definitely a must play. And I also finished Hogwarts Legacy. So that took me months to get through. Turns out my final game time for it was 50 hours. Yes, that's right. That's how long it takes me to finish games. So 3 months, 50 hours. Incredible RPG. Absolutely incredible. I hope it sells another 12, 15 million. It's probably going to be one of the best selling RPGs of the generation, up there with Elden Ring. And, the last generation versions haven't even came out yet. So there's like probably 120, 150 million people that still haven't played it yet, that are wanting to play it potentially. And then you have the Switch. Although I'll be honest, I have no idea how that game's going to run on a Nintendo Switch, because it's not a cloud version, it's a native version. So unless there's like no trees or grass, because there's a lot of foliage in that game, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, Hogwarts Legacy, incredible, absolutely incredible. And the good news is, for me, that was about a 9.5 out of 10. Like, it was so close to being a 10. If it had Quidditch, it would have been a 10. Absolutely. But, like, they have a solid foundation. They know what they're making. This is the studio's first AAA game. And then they made that. Like well done to Avalanche. Like, it's incredible, because in my feed all the time, there's people that don't give a crap about Harry Potter, and they love Hogwarts Legacy. It's made in such a way that you can just jump into it not knowing a thing. And excuse me, people have told me they've gotten into Harry Potter, the books and the movies, because of the game. So congratulations to the team. They're going to have a massive success with this. And Logan, do you think you'll be picking it up at some point?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick it up down the road when it's on sale. I've been meaning to jump into it. I've just got a big backlog right now, and Jedi's coming very soon, and then Redfall. So I'm jumping into those, but I do want to play it, and I enjoy Harry Potter. I'm not the Harry Potter stan in my family. That's my sister, but I enjoy it, and I think it's a good thing that's making even more fans, and it seems like Warner Brothers is going to adapt the license for even more things going forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to make a lot more Harry Potter games now, because there's been a market for it for years. But we had an entire generation, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, we had zero Harry Potter games outside of the remastered Lego ones. And those were older generation Lego games where characters didn't even speak. So, I mean, I'm putting this out there. It's now the 25th of April 2023. I think in the next few years we're going to see all of the films remade in Lego form, much like the Rise of Skywalker, whatever you call the collection. Skywalker Saga. I'm all over the place today. But we're going to see a bunch of games. There's a Quidditch video game coming out, which is multiplayer. It's going to be competitive. But yeah, that's enough Harry Potter for now. I'll move on. But you mentioned Star Wars again, and it just reminds us that I think people listening, they need to be really careful because there's copies floating around. And the funny thing is, there's people that have said they've played it, even though the disc is basically a download key. So people that have gotten early copies, they're putting it in the console and they're getting the download already, which is bad news for spoilers. I've read some things about the game, and I think a lot of people that were fans of the first game are going to be really happy with this. All in all, it looks like they've pretty much improved on the first game in every single way, which is great. You know, I think Cal Kestis is a fantastic Star Wars character. They can go pretty much anywhere with the game, and originally they had the idea of doing this as a trilogy, so hopefully it does well. I think it will, and we'll see a third one in 2 or 3 years or something. They can somehow get these games out pretty quick, despite how much details in those games. So, yeah. And Star Wars Jedi Survivor comes out this Friday. Like, it's coming up fast, and I'll make a point for next week's show. I'll have a ton of gameplay in the podcast for people to watch. No spoilers, obviously, just gameplay and stuff. But, yeah, good time to be a Star Wars fan because that game just looks phenomenal. Like, Logan, have you kept up with the new trailers for the game?
Oh yeah, I'm a Star Wars junkie. I've been all over that. I'm so stoked for it. I've got it, ready to download now, all 140 gigabytes of it basically, and just super stoked for it. Maybe someday I'll get the collector's edition of it with the lightsaber, but that's for down the road. But I'm very excited for the game. Looks awesome. Can't wait to see where they take the story. The first one was my game of the year when it came out, and I expect this one to be even better. So, just hats off to Respawn. They don't miss, frankly, except Titanfall 3, which they don't want to talk about. Besides that, Respawn is all aces.
Yeah, Respawn, they are great developers. I may rant about Apex now and then because that took away Titanfall 3 from me, which is fairly insulting. But like they have a bunch of different games in development. They're working on also a Star Wars first-person shooter, as well as a Star Wars RTS, which I'm all game for. I'll buy them. Hopefully, the RTS will also come to console as well. Speaking of RTS games, Company of Heroes 3 is coming to Xbox late May. It looks phenomenal. If you like World War II and controlling, the battlegrounds, there's so much detail. Like, as someone that used to play RTS games back in the early 2000s a lot, we never really had like lots of units on screen, just because that's how like the hardware was at the time. But the amount of detail on screen in Company of Heroes 3 is phenomenal. Like, you can even make out like individual like faces are different from each other and stuff. Like, and it's a big deal because we don't really get many big RTS games on console, and this is the first of many which we're going to get this year, and it looks great. They've actually made the controls for the Xbox controller work. I've been paying attention to this game for a while, so if you like RTS games or want to get into them, it has full controller support. But if you have a keyboard and mouse, you can plug it in and play it like a normal RTS, so everyone wins. Have you been keeping up with that game at all? Because it looks pretty good. Logan, you there? Okay, and I think Logan is muted. But yeah, Company of Heroes looks good. The trailer's out now, and frankly, when it comes to that game, I hope it gets a lot of support because developers don't port these games to Xbox for a reason, and they don't port them to PlayStation for a reason because they assume that there isn't a market for those types of games on console. And I'll be wondering, anyone in chat, is anyone actually interested in playing more RTS games on console? Yeah, okay, we've lost Logan. His PC's probably gone all messed up, but he'll be back on. The link's ready for him to join again. But yeah, Company of Heroes releases late May. It looks fantastic. It really does. And the thing about RTS games on console is that the controls could be weird. So in this game, even though it's a real-time RTS, you can actually go into slow motion mode and play it that way. So you don't have to worry about making quick decisions and worry if the enemy's going to like get on you so fast. So basically, if you're even a newbie to RTS games, you're probably still going to like it. There are other strategy games coming to Xbox this year. So there's also Aliens Dark Descent, which looks great. Like, if you love Aliens, it looks like a must-play game. And I think Logan's back.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're having some rain and it interferes with the internet connection sometime out here because we have a satellite thing. Yeah, RTSs. I'm stoked more coming to the platform. And speaking of that, the Age of Empires, the original version, is getting basically upgraded and ported to Age of Empires 2. So look for that soon.
Yeah, that's a big deal because people have been wanting the first game ported, but there's never been really any news on it. So if people have been looking forward to Age of Empires or more Age of Empires on Xbox, the first game is essentially getting ported into Age of Empire 2 as an expansion in the same engine, which is really cool. It's more content. You can't really go wrong. And the game already has like 250 hours worth of campaign anyway. So there's a lot of RTS games coming. I think developers are finally figuring out that maybe we do want more. You know, on the Xbox 360, we had a few RTS games. We had Halo Wars, we had Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2, and Supreme Commander 1 and 2, the Command and Conquer games. Like, we were getting them more regular than the past generation, which was weird to me because development for modern consoles is a lot easier than it was for, you know, the Xbox 360 and the PS3. You know, the PlayStation 3 had a cell processor, which not even the people that made it knew how to use. The Xbox 360 was essentially a Mac, you know, at the end of the day. So it's good that we see more games. Like, I'm always for more different, you know, types of titles coming to the console because, like, we don't just want one genre coming over. So, like, if you go to the Xbox store right now, you'll notice there's a lot of simulator-style games in there. You know, you've got your Power Wash Simulator, your Flight Simulator, obviously, Goat Simulator for some reason, which originally was a meme. But yeah, I'm all for more PC-style games coming to console. It's good for everyone. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so now I want to get this out of the way first because there was an earthquake on Twitter because of this. Oxenfree II. Now, Oxenfree came out, and I think it was like 2015. It was a very early-ish Xbox, you know, one generation indie game. And it was pretty cool. It was very slow in my opinion. Like, you basically walked from point A to point B and talked in between in a lot of cases. And it was extremely slow, but it had some cool things going on for it. Anyway, the sequel gets announced. It's published by Netflix, and it's come to everything except Xbox. Now, when this news went live, I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't looking at gaming news. I opened up Twitter, I think it was like 6:30 p.m., and I just saw the fallout. And I think I had a message from Logan on Twitter saying Oxenfree isn't coming to Xbox, and I just rolled my eyes thinking, we are in, let's be honest, for a shitstorm. Absolute pandemonium on Twitter. And Logan, like, what's your thought on this? Because it was kind of wild, the reaction to it.
Yeah, it sucks, to be honest, because I loved Oxenfree. It's one of my favorite indies ever. I eat up those type of games, like the narrative story, like the time travel, the aliens, the mystery, just like all that sci-fi, just gobbledygook. I love all that just weird stuff. And so I was really looking forward to a sequel, and that they're gonna make a show at some point, I think. And then, like, before they were bought by Netflix, it was already announced that it was coming to all platforms, and then they said they had nothing to say about Xbox at that time. But then they're acquired by Netflix, and so now it's also coming to Netflix, but no Xbox whatsoever, not a peep about it. And so, on one hand, you're like, well, it's owned by Netflix, so of course they want to put it with their Netflix games. But then on the other hand, it's kind of like, seriously, all platforms, including Netflix, but not Xbox. It's like, what is going on here? Like, surely Xbox isn't down so bad that they can't get this on their thing. Or maybe this adds some credence to the idea that potentially those, murmurings that Sony has some contract stuff that, keeps things away from Xbox for definitive amounts of time or whatever is maybe those are real. Maybe those aren't just rumors. Or maybe it's just a bunch of garbage and nobody knows. But it was just a bad day to see that on top of like Pixel Remaster Collection was a bunch of press about that same day. It was just a double whammy, and Xbox fans are just really on edge right now. As we'll get to in another topic where somebody kind of blabbed about something and it was not received well. So
Yeah.
it's just it's been a time for Xbox people in the mean streets of Twitter, and I think it was really bad timing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's not the best time to drop bad news when there's already bad news. And the thing is, I think it was like a bit of an overreaction, but I'm like that with everything. I think a lot of ways that people react to things in the game space is over the top. It's either down to Oxenfree not coming to Xbox because Sony has one of those deals in place, which we'll be talking about later, or Netflix just has a thing against Xbox because, Game Pass is also a subscription service. Netflix is a subscription service, so there must be something there. I think we'll find out more because, things in the landscape, like, is getting a bit weird and spicy, so I think we will find out soon. But people just need to be vocal. Say you want this game to come to Xbox. I'm unsure of how big the fan base is of the first game, but if they're all vocal on Twitter, be polite, make a point of it. Make sure that there is a fan base of Oxenfree that want the game to come to the platform. And, as a week as a whole, this past week, people have told me, like, hey, I've just started following you because, you're a positive Xbox guy. And maybe it's because of the way I browse Twitter. I haven't actually seen much negativity outside of the Oxenfree stuff. But other people have obviously told me. But I think the problem this past week is that the Oxenfree thing was basically public the day the Pixel remasters came out, which we already knew wasn't coming to Xbox anyway. However, as we know that if you're an Xbox fan and you cover Xbox, you know that if you already have bad news, or if you know that a game isn't coming to Xbox, the day it releases is also another shitstorm. For some reason, over news we already knew about. Square Enix makes stupid decisions, and I have a massive rant about Square Enix in a minute, by the way, but just be vocal about Oxenfree II. I'm sure it'll come over in no time. And, before I get into my absolute colossal Square Enix rant, I want to talk about Ubisoft for a minute, because last week we got Ubisoft Plus announced. Their new service where you subscribe for $17.99 a month. The exact same price it costs for Netflix and Disney Plus combined.
You're tripping.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And, I've been telling people since, do not subscribe to it. If you listen to this right now, do not subscribe to it. Now, funny thing is, just before the show went live, I was on the Xbox store and noticed that Ubisoft has a sale on. And they have a bunch of games on sale, ranging from Far Cry to Splinter Cell, basically all their titles, Ghost Recon, Wildlands, Breakpoint. And if you select a few titles that you want, you could pretty much get maybe 3 or 4 games for the price of 1 month of subscription. Which is kind of mind-blowing. So if people have been interested in buying some Ubisoft titles, save yourself some money, go to the store. I'm guessing they have a sale on PlayStation as well. Buy those games up front, because you'll probably save money other than subscribing to their subscription service, because $17.99 a month is an absolute rip-off as a customer. Netflix, Disney Plus, Prime, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus or whatever it's called now, Xbox Game Pass, Nintendo's service, everything, absolutely everything is less than Ubisoft. And Ubisoft's service on Xbox has the least amount of games. They don't even have the Xbox 360 games. You can get a whole year of EA Access or EA Play for about the same price. It's ridiculous. And in EA Play on Xbox, there's like 50 games or something. So do not subscribe to Ubisoft Plus. Look, people make fun of Ubisoft all the time for all their games and stuff, right? And how there's like maps filled with icons and how there's towers where you unlock certain parts of the map. But the truth is, I play a lot of Ubisoft games. I find them relaxing. And, to see them put out a service like this, it's just not good. I'm doing a consumer thing here. Do not subscribe to it. Like, Logan, do you see any redeemable thing about Ubisoft Plus?
I mean, maybe that it comes with gold versions of games and stuff that, DLCs and stuff, but to me, it's way too premium a price for what it actually is. Just at the end of the day, it's too much of the same for too much money.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of big games coming out. Kind of, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which we'll be talking about in a bit. That comes out this year, apparently. They have Assassin's Creed Mirage. But, only Assassin's Creed Mirage, I believe, was listed in the new games that's coming to the service. So, either way, do not subscribe to it. It's just not worth it. And if they get the message, they'll have to lower the price. They'll just have to. But yeah, so before we get into the Mega Round, we're about 20 minutes into the show, whatever. If people enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Really helps the channel out. Super chats are live if you want to do all the support and stuff and want something read out or whatever. So, I didn't tell Logan this before the show went live because, honestly, I'm angry. So, I've been wanting to get into the whole, how should I put it, rhythm again of putting out weekly videos as well as podcasts. And for a while, I couldn't due to health reasons, which I'll talk about at some point. It may be in a video. Anyway, so last week I made a video. It took me about, I'm not even kidding, about 12 hours to make. I was really proud of this video. Very well produced. As people have been watching my content, I taught myself how to edit. Anyway, I made this video about the whole Xbox and Square Enix situation. It's about 17 minutes long. And just as I, uploaded the video, Square Enix claimed the entire thing just because I used 30 seconds of my own gameplay. My own gameplay from Final Fantasy XIII. Now, in the video, I actually had footage from Final Fantasy VII Remake, Pixel Remaster, and also my own gameplay from Crisis Core, but they claimed the entire video due to a 30 or 40 second clip of Final Fantasy XIII gameplay. My gameplay from a game I purchased in 2010 or whenever the hell it launched. And that really pissed me off because I tried to give Square Enix the benefit of the doubt. I may whine about them a lot and I may complain about them because they don't bring games to Xbox regularly. They cherry pick whatever games come over. They make stupid business decisions when it comes to, NFTs. Of all companies, they want to do NFTs. They're unwilling to bring games to consoles which people want the games on. And they do this to people. I've heard from other people they had their videos claimed because of gameplay. Like Logan, does that make any sense to you? That, not a cutscene, not a clip from a trailer. No. Gameplay.
I mean, it fits the I don't understand what in the flying flip Square is thinking and doing strategy. So, from that sense, it makes sense. But otherwise, no, it's nonsense. No wonder they're not selling games or failing to meet expectations if they're blocking and yanking footage from their own games that actually have been sold online. That is preposterously just ridiculous.
I love Square Enix in the past. They've released some solid titles, before they sold off, Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics. I love that Tomb Raider trilogy. I love Deus Ex. Thankfully they're with a better, publisher now. But the fact that they claimed that video where I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, they claimed a whole 17-minute video, 17 bloody minutes for 30 seconds of gameplay. My gameplay, my bloody gameplay, mine. And my blood was boiling. But I think, the reason mainly why I'm angry is that every month I put out at least one top list. top 20, top 10 list of games either coming to the Xbox. I have a ton coming out soon, which I think people enjoy. But like EA, Ubisoft, THQ Nordic, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, who else? Deep Silver. None of those companies have ever claimed one of my videos. Not one. And you're using trailer footage. They're completely fine with it. Hell, you allowed access to use their trailers in, content. They allow you to download them and use them in content. And the fact that I used 30 seconds of gameplay from a game I bloody paid for, day one launch, and they claimed the whole thing, whole 17-minute video. Ridiculous. So I'm throwing the book at Square. They are the worst publisher. They put Crisis Core on Xbox, a game which I tell people to buy because it's an amazing game. A prequel to a game which will never come to Xbox, which we'll be talking about in a bit. And, they wonder why the Final Fantasy fan base isn't getting any bigger, despite the fact they decide to launch new games on less platforms. Congratulations, Square, you're stupid. It's stupid. I don't understand how a publisher in the modern age can be that ridiculous. Even Nintendo doesn't do that anymore. Nintendo, of all companies, learned not to do that. They let their fans make, content around them now. Just need to rant about that because I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt and they did that over a game that I own. It's stupid. Anyway, we'll move on. Damn Square. They are just stupid. Speaking of Square, they are always missing sales expectations. Wonder why. But basically, the other day, we got the announcement that Atomic Heart went above and beyond their expectations by Focus Interactive. Focus Entertainment. Atomic Heart has sold well. They're going to make more games in the universe. We're going to see expansions. And honestly, as a fan of BioShock, it was good. It was a lot like BioShock. Logan, have you played it yet?
I have not, but it's on my list that I want to play. It's very much the type of game I like, so I'm looking forward to playing it. And I'm glad more content is coming though.
Yeah, it's good that it's doing well because one of the big concerns was like, how every time there's a third-party game that launches in Game Pass, you always get these people that are, wondering, did it actually sell on the platform? Well, Focus Entertainment, they put games on Game Pass regularly, and they are completely happy with how the game performed. Now, for people that haven't played it yet, you get the best experience because you get the updates. Achievements for me were broken for a month. Now they're fine. But yeah, other than that, great game. I highly recommend people play it. And it's a weird game. So alternate Soviet era BioShock, basically. The funny thing is, none of the adverts for that game, none of the trailers actually tell you that it's an open world game, which was the strangest thing about its marketing. But other than that, great game. I highly recommend people play it. It's in Game Pass. Honestly, if it wasn't for the bugs I had, and the achievements not popping, and certain issues I had with one of the bosses, I'm guessing by the end of the year it would be in my top 3. But either way, great game. Highly recommend people play it. I will say this though, and I'd be interested for the people in chat. Whenever there's a third-party game releasing in Game Pass, and you have people on the other side that make fun of the situation, say people aren't going to buy it, because you don't support the devs. Have you ever noticed that those people never actually post footage on Twitter? Because I've never seen a single PlayStation fan post Atomic Heart footage on Twitter, despite the fact that they said, people aren't going to buy it. Like, Logan, have you to this day seen a PlayStation fan talk or post about footage from Atomic Heart?
I'm gonna mention it. I don't think I've seen too many, if any.
Because I noticed it's a bit of a trend. They did the same with Atomic Heart, or not Atomic Heart, a Plague Tale Requiem. Nobody posted footage about it. And it's like, they talk all this crap about games launching in Game Pass now, people don't buy them, yet they don't post footage. Something I noticed. But anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, highly recommend people play that. It's Soviet BioShock. It's great. And anyway, we'll move on. Okay, Twitter. Now, we kind of have to talk about this because, Twitter in the gaming space it's kind of big. Elon Musk bought Twitter I think it was in November or December for $40 billion, I believe, which is like twice of what it's worth now or something. Twitter of all social media apps actually has like the lowest install base, but Twitter's the one people talk about, right? People that use Twitter completely differently than how people use Instagram or Facebook or whatever the hell else there is, right? You open Twitter, you scroll, you talk to people, you reply, you share, all that stuff. It isn't really like that on other apps. There's not a community thing, and basically what I'm trying to rant about is that Elon Musk and the new people that run Twitter, they start removing features from people, right? So the ability to get the SMS text message for your code, that's locked behind a paywall now. I've never been a fan of locking things that were already free behind a paywall. It's a bit weird. They shouldn't do that in general for anything really. And anyway, so for some reason, Twitter decided to charge, I think it's $48,000 a month for the API access. Now, Microsoft aren't paying it at all. And when I was looking into it, basically Microsoft would have to pay $48,000 a year, something around that, to have access to let people post gameplay from PC, like directly from the app or from their Xboxes. And people are being angry, wondering why Microsoft haven't done this. Is Sony not going to pay for it either? It's a weird situation. And for people that haven't seen my tweet about it, if you upload your clips to OneDrive or the Xbox app, you can upload straight to Twitter from there. It's a strange situation, the whole Twitter thing. In the gaming space, Twitter's big. That's how people find out gaming news. But I've noticed in the past week, people are trying to find alternatives. Now, we've gone down this before, haven't we? We all look for an alternative, something that looks like Twitter, something that works like Twitter, something that feels like Twitter. And then a week later, we back, right? The same thing happened with Mastodon, although you had to pick a server and that, and it was terrible. And then the same thing happened with Hive, right? And here we are months later. Nobody talks about Hive. Nobody talks about Mastodon. And people are looking for alternatives. I think we could be honest, Logan. People aren't moving, are they?
No, if you want to talk about the constant negativity, my word. Like, since that acquisition of Twitter by Musk and all the, hoopla around that and changes and backtracks and, oh, we're going to try this, or we're going to do that, or we're going to charge for this or that, and then everybody freaking out and claiming they're going to go to some Bloodle or whatever made up app to try for social media experiment, and then it's super complicated, and they're like, you know what, this app kind of sucks. I think I'll just come back, even just complain about it, but I'm going to come back anyway. But I'm mad about it. And then it's like, get over yourself. Like, if you want to be here, great. If you don't, then don't. It's just the constant whining is just like nails on a chalkboard just scratching. It's just like, we got it, okay? You're not happy about it. I mean, and the whole Twitter Blue thing, it's like, I know this isn't technically gaming, but it's related because it's Twitter. Like, to me, like, I get the idea of it, and so it doesn't bother me personally. Like, like you subscribe to something, you get extra features, extra content. I don't like certain things being put behind a paywall that were free to begin with. I agree about that. But like, being able to edit tweets or longer tweets or some file stuff and other stuff that they've added for exclusively for subscription, like, I get that. That's kind of how business works. You have a subscription and the people who subscribe get more content than people who don't. And then there's been this weird, like, oh, we didn't want to pay for it, so now we're going to turn on the people who got suckered into paying for it. I'm like, really? We're going to have a mob mentality about if somebody wants some extra features for their thing? Like, it's not about the blue check mark to me at all. That's like, whatever. It's a little, little mark on my profile. But, like, to me, it's about the features is why. But I just, it's been a whole really giant cluster cluck online, and it's been fascinating and kind of depressing at the same time to observe.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't have Twitter Blue. People have told me I should get it because like I could authenticate who I am. Like, but I've been on Twitter since 2012. I've had hundreds and hundreds of imposters on Twitter, and I just block them. I report them, and I don't think me making a Twitter Blue account would change that. I almost got it because of the edit button, because that bloody autocorrect on iOS screws up about 90% of my tweets.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, every single time. Like, I'm sure people that are listening that have iOS, like, autocorrect gets you a lot. Sometimes you can get in trouble because of autocorrect. I should know. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's the gaming space. Like, gaming is covered a lot on Twitter. There's two places. Nobody really gives a crap. Let's be honest about Facebook gaming. Like, no one talks about it. I didn't even know what Facebook Gaming was. I was looking for a separate app called Facebook Gaming. It turns out Facebook Gaming isn't even a thing. It's just people posting gaming stuff on Facebook. And, when it comes to Twitter, that's where the announcements are. That's where people have their eyes, open on. Like, before I had a Twitter account, I would go to Twitter just to read news and gaming stuff. And that was from, like, 2006 when Twitter first started. So hopefully they get the stuff together, and they just have to make Twitter Blue more incentivable. Let's pretend that's a word. Give people more of an incentive to subscribe to Twitter Blue, but I honestly think they should let people get a check mark even if they aren't paying. That's how it used to be months ago. You would give them a picture of your government ID, they'd set up who you are, and then you get the check mark. That's how it is on Google. When you sign up for YouTube and that, you give them a picture of your ID, they verify who you are, done. Like, mine was done in about 2 hours. Like, they could just do that on Twitter. But anyway, just a bit of a rant because it's been pandemonium. When I saw Major Nelson the other day say, "Is there any alternatives?" We all know this song and dance. We've done it before.
A colossal eye roll moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I like Major Nelson, but we're not moving to a different app. It's not happening. And like, if you go on a Hive right now, and I think Hive it's improved a lot, right? It's really usable now. It's really cool, like alternative, but it's not a replacement. And anyway, the other day I was on, and I thought I'd look up for the most liked post on the entire website for that day. I should say the app for that day. The most liked post had 20 likes. Like, wow. Like, there's no community. Nobody posting memes. Nobody sharing stuff. It's just dead, But as for the footage thing, like, I've been using the OneDrive method since 2017. I get a clip on my Xbox, I upload them to OneDrive, and honestly, I think clips upload faster to OneDrive than they do on Xbox Live. And I've been doing this for years now. And the quality, I'm not even kidding, the quality of clips is better. Some people have said that if you post clips from the Xbox app, they're only 30 FPS. I think Colt Eastwood said that. But if you do OneDrive, you get the full resolution and full frame rate. So it may be one extra step, but it's easy to do. I've done it every day for like 5 years, 6 years. So, yeah. So if people are wondering, when you go to save a clip, click on the Xbox button, and you'll have an option to share to, and then OneDrive is one of the options. It's super easy to do. I've been doing it for years. Anyway, we'll move on from the whole Twitter rant stuff. Okay, so... Diablo 4 finally went gold. The frame rate and performance thing is final, so it's going to be 4K, 60 FPS on Series X, and it's going to be 1080p, I believe, and 60 FPS on Series S. So pretty cool stuff. But the big announcement is that it's coming back. So from May 12th to May 14th, they're doing a server test, basically. I think they call it the Server Slam. And if you weren't able to get the Wolf Pup beforehand, you can get it now. You have to get to level 20. You get a bunch of unlocks. The unfortunate thing is that it's a new save. So you would have to start from scratch again. And as someone that loved the Diablo 4 beta, I don't want to get burnt out on it. So I think I may get some footage, but I think I'm out. Because and I'll let people know about this because back in 2014, I believe, when The Division was about to come out, I took part in the Division 1 closed alpha, then the open alpha, then the closed beta, then the open beta. And then when the game came out, I was like, I can't do this. I can't play the opening hours again for a 5th time. I just can't do it. And I'm not going to do that with Diablo. I'm looking forward to the game. It comes out in June. It's not that far away, let's be honest. But for people that haven't played it, play for, 10 hours on hard. You'll get the level 20, get some good stuff for the game to release. But yeah, Logan, what's your thoughts? Because you didn't really play the beta, right?
Yeah, no, I've never actually played any of the games in that series before, so I have no experience with it. But early impressions from it, from reading, sounds like a lot of people expect it to be a massive hit. And assuming this deal finally bloody gets done, maybe there's a chance it pops in the Game Pass later this year. So, I don't know. It should be good times for those who are fans of it, though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Diablo 4 was amazing. Like, they've made that game in such a way that anyone can jump into it. Like, if you've never played a Diablo game, you can just jump right in. It's super easy. The range of difficulties you can choose from, you can make the game as easy or as difficult as you want. You can play it as a casual game if you want. It's just amazing. Like, and the weird thing is, like, out of all the alphas and betas I've played, there's usually been bugs. Diablo 4, I had no bugs at all. It was perfect. You'd think it was like a final release. So, yeah, but if people don't want to get burnt out like me, maybe keep away from it. Because, like, again, I do not want to get burnt out and play the same thing 3 times before release. It's happened a lot. I should have learnt by now to not do that, but I do it over and over again. It's insane. But yeah, it's a good game regardless. So if people haven't played it and they want the pre-order stuff, or say the unlock stuff, why not? Play it for a few hours. And yeah, you know what? I'm looking at the list. Oh, actually, no, I want to rant about this because I just saw this before we went live. So Dead Island 2 launched last week, and a lot of people are really enjoying it. And it has some of the best gore I've ever seen. I haven't picked it up yet.
Paint the town red.
Yeah, you can literally paint the town red. And like, I planned on picking it up when I finished Jedi Survivor, because I'm sick of having so many unfinished games. So I'm sticking to one new game at a time. And I'm getting that at another point. But anyway, from the clips I've seen, I've read about it before, it has the best gore I've ever seen in a game. And if you like gore, it's wonderful. You can even melt the flesh off zombies. It's beautiful. Never seen anything like it. So anyway, people are having fun with it. And, it's been getting like 7 out of 10s. To me, you can have a really good 7 out of 10. Right? A game does not have to be a 9 or a 10 or an 8 to be good. Like, for instance, one of my favorite games of all time from the original Xbox and PlayStation 2 era was called Prisoner of War. It was basically reverse Hitman. You had to escape different prisons. It was this third-person game. There's been no game like it since. That game's like a 6 out of 10. It's one of the best games I've ever played. It's like phenomenal. Nobody knows about it. Nobody talks about it because it was a Codemasters release, I believe, and it literally got covered by no one at the time. And it's an amazing game. Like, I think people need to step back from the number thing. Maybe, not judge games that much, because there's really good games out there. And if people are just locking themselves to like 8.5s and above, they are missing out on some really amazing gaming experiences. So anyway, people today start bringing up the boxed copy thing in the UK. Now, Logan, you know where I'm going with this, right?
Oh my gosh, the sacred UK boxed sales chart. I can't wait.
Yeah, and like, I think, if I remember correctly, they said like 62% of UK boxed copies is on PlayStation. And here's why that doesn't make sense. Here's why talking about UK boxed numbers doesn't make sense. Now, about 60% of games sold in the United Kingdom are digital, right? You can't get a PC boxed copy of Dead Island, right? So PlayStation having a bigger install base on a cross-generation game, are people really surprised that it's a little more than half? Because you can't get it on Switch, You can't get a boxed PC version. So people are making this like made up big deal about a game that's sold, let's just say 40% on Xbox. How is that bad when the install base for PlayStation is massive compared to Xbox in the UK? So people are drumming up this drama over something that doesn't exist. And my mind's been boggled, man. Like, people are making a big deal out of it. In UK boxed sales, nobody cares because half of our video game stores shut like 10 years ago. My city doesn't even have a video game store. I think the last one closed in 2013. Like, if you want to buy a game physically, you either have to A, live near a game that's still open. We don't have many left. You have to buy it off Amazon, and then buying a game off Amazon, if you're an Xbox fan, is an even crappier experience because the games don't show up for the platform you're looking for. I really think Microsoft needs to investigate that, by the way. But I've mentioned it before. It's happening in Australia, Spain, France, Germany. Like, if you type, for people living in those regions or living in the US, go to Amazon right now and search Star Wars Jedi Survivor Xbox. You'll get the PlayStation version. That's all that happens in the UK, and it's been happening for a decade. So people just think, okay, I'm going to buy digital. Because guess what? I see value in physical games. I still do. And now, honestly, I've went from maybe 60 to 70% physical to about 20% physical. Because it's not convenient. Like, me buying a game off Amazon, the games always arrive late, but if I get it digital, I get it on time. I can play it when I want, and I don't have to go searching for it on Amazon. So it's a stupid situation. They keep bringing it up with every single bloody release when it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And if I see one more article talking about this, UK boxed sales, stop using that as a metric. It's a metric that doesn't fucking exist. Sorry, I'm swearing on this channel. I try not to swear, but it's really making me angry because we shouldn't use that metric. It's not a metric that exists. You know, like, if anything, we shouldn't use UK numbers at all. Like, I on Twitter, I always used to post the UK chart, not the sales numbers, the chart in which, you know, the order of games sold, right? And for most of the time in the UK, you have a Call of Duty game, you have a Lego game, a GTA, and Minecraft. And you have other games, you know, in between. You have your Assassin's Creeds and basically big RPGs along with FIFA and stuff, right? It's a stupid metric because the country, physical games don't make much sense. Hell, the high street, you know, stores in the UK are dying. Like, there's next to no shops where I live because people just buy stuff off Amazon. Like, it's absolutely pointless to use that as a metric. And the fact that I see websites like IGN in the past, like, use that as a metric, come on. Like, Logan, you live in the US. What's the whole physical to digital situation like over there?
Well, over here, at least in my neck of the woods, so to speak, like, we have quite a few stores that I could buy physical games if I wanted to. There's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 GameStops within a not too far distance from my home. There's Vintage Stock, which sells a bunch of older stuff, and then also new stuff and toys and stuff like that. And then you got your Targets and your Walmarts and stuff. And then Best Buy still sells some. Theirs is limited now, but they still have a few games. But so if you want physical, you can find it for the most part, but it's definitely way less convenient than it is for digital. And frankly, since the pandemic, like before the pandemic, I was way more physical than I was digital. Post pandemic, or you know, at this stage, whatever, I'm a lot more digital than I am physical. I I've gotten to the point where I will buy it physically if it is like a steelbook, like first party, or just a beloved special title to me for some reason, like, or a collector's edition. I will buy it physically then. But if not, it's frankly also a lot cheaper to get it digitally, and it doesn't take up space. I've got like Library of Alexandria behind me on my shelves with all these games from OG Xbox to now, and then my PlayStation library, Nintendo library, whatever. And it's just, it even comes down to just space. Why do you think Japan, for example, loves the S so much and smaller stuff? They're crammed in these little sardine apartments and everything to where there's like so much, not much space for people. So the smaller and compatible and being able to take it as you go and digital owned in the cloud where it doesn't physically take up space, that's a real deal for some folks. So over here, I'd say it's definitely trending towards more digital, but it's not quite to where your region of the world is yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's the physical game situation in the UK is absolutely terrible. Like, I put it like this: supermarkets in the UK tend to they used to sell video games. They used to have a small section. Now most of them don't. In my local supermarket, they only sell FIFA, Call of Duty at launch, and GTA's. Guess what? We don't get anymore GTA games. Like, even when the new generation version came out, they didn't stock it. They just get FIFA and COD now and then, and it's just a bit difficult. Like, and I love physical edition games, because like on my shelf I have like the original Xbox, then the 360 above it, then Xbox One, and then my Xbox Series generation shelf is kind of small. Not because I don't have many games, it's because it's kind of a nuisance to buy them, and I may as well just get them, physically. And this is something that major mainstream media outlets won't tell you about the UK game market. Physical games are cheaper, but you're incentivized to buy digitally because it's convenient. Like, I remember Diablo III, Reaper of Souls, I think it was called. Like, I think it's £55 when it came out, but to buy it physically, it costs £65. Like, it's all like the market in the UK is just all over the place. It doesn't make any sense, and that's why you have these sales numbers. But hell, 40% or 30 something percent in a country where dominated by PlayStation, yeah, that's actually pretty decent, and people are making a drama about it. Just something I needed to say because it's been so annoying. Stop using those numbers. It makes no sense. Logan, we talked about this last week, the whole Redfall situation. I wasn't going to make this a topic, but I think it might be fun to talk about it now. So when Redfall had its previews about a month ago, people had extremely positive things to say about it. They were saying it played good, it looked good, it's a cool concept, it's basically Far Cry with vampires, and there wasn't really any negative talk about it. And it got to the point where people were investigating it, telling the FTC and the CMA and all that crap, saying that, hey, there was a PlayStation version in development, and now they cancelled it. Can you remember that, Logan?
Yeah, that whole thing was just comical. It harkens back to when this whole deal was first announced, and you have people tagging the president of the United States of America and senators and government agencies in their Twitter accounts and their mentions saying, "Please block this," or "This isn't right," or just like all this stuff. It's comical, and then they do that on one end, and then on the other end, they're like, "It sucks, it's garbage, I never wanted it anyway." I'm like, which is it? Is it so great that you want it that you're all of a sudden throwing a fit because you can't have it because you don't want to pwn up enough cash to buy an Xbox to play it? Or it is garbage and you never cared about it? It's like, pick a lane and stay in it. It's like, it's so hysterical just seeing the wishy-washy whiplash, like flopping like a fish, like they can't make up their minds. It's like 10-second Tom, like they forget everything. It's hilarious.
Because, like, as soon as the whole frame rate thing came out, people were like, this game is the worst thing ever. They were offended. It ruined their life. It ruined all the clothes. It's like it ruined everything, basically. The whole, like, frames per second announcement. And, when it comes to a shooter, of course I want 60. 60 just plays better. But at the same time, I've played every other, arcade game, and they've all been like 24 frames per second. So it's like, I'm still going to play the game at launch. I do think they should have had 60. That's not up for debate. That's just a fact. But the game's the game. I think it looks good. But I will say this: if any of the media outlets mention that there's no 60 frames mode, it'll be the first time. Like, let's say IGN, it'll be pretty much the first time one of those media outlets like took a markdown from a game score because of a lack of a 60 FPS mode. Because I was looking and I couldn't find any traces of frame rates mentioned in reviews. Like, oh, we docked at a point because it's 30. We haven't had that before. So there's a chance if Redfall, when it launches, it might get docked points because of its frames per second, even though other games have never been affected. Like, there's a difference between having a bad frame rate, right? So I'm trying to think of a game that had a bad frame rate. Logan.
I know Arkham Gotham Knights, there was a big controversy because it launched with 30. And then Plague Tale Requiem I think had 30 as well, and a bunch of people flipped out about those.
Yeah, like those launched at 30, but like Gotham Knights was extremely inconsistent for me. Like, I was getting sometimes like 19 frames per second. Like, it was all over the place. And like, I saw some reviews mention that. Like, it's okay to mention as an inconsistent frame rate, but if Redfall launches and it's like full 30 all the time, they can't mention it. Because otherwise they're being hypocrites because they never mention it for other games. That's my point. But yeah, anyway, so I think the game looks good. A lot of people still don't know that the game is going to have DLC characters. And the main reason I'm talking about Redfall is that people still don't know what game it is, apparently. Which blows my mind. Like, people reply to my posts about Redfall and talk about it like it's Left 4 Dead. Like, people still have that out there. And we've talked about the whole perception versus reality thing in the past. And it's like, no, it's an open world Far Cry style game. It has towns which you can liberate and all that crap. It's not a Far Cry game. Like, people keep bringing up Back 4 Blood. Like, I just don't get it. And I think this is the problem with Microsoft, is that I think they need to be more active in the advertising space and marketing space, because, look, my main problems with Microsoft, and I like their products. Obviously, I have a channel that's focused on Microsoft, Xbox, but it comes to marketing, messaging, and while people always, by the way, Logan, you've probably seen this, and other people listening may have seen this in the past week or month or whatever. There's these, let's be honest, bigger creators that will say Microsoft's release are inconsistent and they don't know how to get consistent releases out. But I'm looking at the calendar, and it's like this year is actually pretty busy for Microsoft. They've released a few games already. There's a bunch of games releasing this year. But Microsoft's apparently inconsistent when on PlayStation there's only Spider-Man coming out this year by first party. Like, am I going nuts, Logan?
No, I think you're hitting a good point there, because I'll admit, sometimes I get frustrated with in the moment if there's a game delayed, or the game doesn't seem complete when it launches, but they're gonna fix it and stuff like that. But overall, it does seem like there is this kind of zeitgeist, hive mind mentality. When something gets thrown out there in the news ether and it kind of floats around, people see it and then they react to it, and then other people react to it, and it becomes this giant avalanche snowball effect, and it just goes down and just annihilates everything, and it's hard to slow down. And it seems like that in particular with Xbox. Whatever news it is, it seems like the first reaction is always negative, even if maybe it's really not that negative of a thing. And I think people just get caught up in it when they see so much negativity about something, even if it's not that negative. It affects everybody, but I do think there are some accounts more than others who maybe thrive on the negativity a little more than they should, or negativity sells, and I don't like it, but it seems to be a thing. And I'm an eternal optimist, but I'll say if I think something's bad or negative. But I generally try to see the positive. But there is definitely a trend of things escalating and being about they just can't get it straight. They suck at their job. Have a purge, clean house, like send them all home. You're fired, basically. Like there's like a pitchforks and torches mentality. Anytime anything happens with Xbox, it could be like they misspelled the font on something, and then it's like, all right, fire the staff. Everything's awful. Matt Booty doesn't know what he's doing. Phil's in over his head. It's like we should have had Don Matrick here the whole time. It's like, oh my gosh, come on, really?
Yeah, the whole praising of Don Matrick thing, I still see people mention it. It's like, do you know what Xbox would be right now if Phil Spencer wasn't around? It wouldn't be here. Like,
Under.
like, would my YouTube channel be, blue themes, like me covering having PlayStation in the thumbnails all the time? If that had happened, alternate universe. But like, if it wasn't for Phil, Xbox wouldn't be the way it is today. That's just a fact. Like, and if you really think about it, maybe like Xbox having that really crappy, announcement. Like, really think about it. Go back in time, 2013. Let's say Microsoft didn't have that like bad announcement. Let's say that the announcement of the Xbox One was 100% gaming, right? There was no drama about DRM, and the games that launched, were just as they are now. We probably wouldn't have Game Pass. Microsoft would probably still have 5 studios. Like, really think about it. And, looking back, like, maybe the worst thing that happened to Xbox was actually the best thing that happened to them. Because even though they lost a lot of the market, even though, like, they had the UK on lockdown, right? They owned the UK. Like, PlayStation 3 was a joke in the UK because it cost, like, twice as much. And, they were inconsistent with their releases. Like, it took PlayStation a while to get going. In the UK, I think the Xbox 360 is still the UK's best-selling console of all time. At least it was up until 2014. I don't really check much now, but like it sold gangbusters in the UK, the Xbox 360. But like, if it wasn't for all that, Microsoft would still have 5 studios. Game Pass wouldn't be a thing. And let's be honest, Microsoft during the 360 era, they used to rely a lot on marketing deals, mainly Call of Duty. And like, Logan, do you think I have a point? Because like, they only used to have 5 studios.
Yeah. This analogy will probably might go over some people's heads, but people who are big sports fans will get where I'm coming with this. But like, sometimes a lot of coaches and athletes say the best experience is getting your butt kicked. And honestly, I think in this instance, it 100% is accurate. Like, um, Xbox One, E3 presentation was an absolute just disaster, just point blank. And then Sony's, knockout hit with this is how you share games, and like the less powerful but more expensive, and the bundled with the Xbox Connect, and then like, is the Connect monitoring or scanning you, and like all this misinformation just thrown out there. It knocked them flat, and they had to dust themselves up, come up with a new idea to reinvent the game and get going. And they took all the feedback to heart. If it wasn't for that, like, there's every chance that Xbox is dead, or we never get backwards compatibility. We never get like, go from 5 studios to, assuming ABK passes, like 30 something. Um, you have, Xbox Play Anywhere with PC. You have Xbox Cloud. You have Game Pass, day and date for first party titles and third party stuff. The accessibility controller, free upgrades with smart delivery, all this stuff. There's every bit that none of that ever happened if they didn't get thoroughly curb stomped at the beginning and had to pick themselves back up and fix it. Like, for example, like, my basketball team I follow, the Thunder, like, one of their worst moments ever happened in a playoff series, and it looked like they lost in 5, and it was terrible, and it looked like the sky's falling. They have to trade players and rebuild and restart over. And turns out that ends up looking like maybe the best thing to ever happen to the franchise, because the future is so much better now, and they acquired draft capital. They have great young players that are developing, like, great coach, set up perfectly. And that none of that would have happened Had they not gone thoroughly smashed and realized, look, this just isn't working. We got to step up our game and do something different. And I feel like Xbox got to that point. Now they're in a much better spot. Is it perfect? No. But it is a lot better than where it was. And the whole idea that the people calling for Don Matrick to come back, that is insanity to me. Like pure unbridled insanity.
Yeah, I mean, or they could do one worse. Phil Harrison, like he's the Grim Reaper of the gaming industry. Like,
I seriously don't get dude hopping from company to company. I mean, like explain the gap in your resume, but for him, it's like it's like why? Well, like what is happening here?
yeah, I mean, like Phil Harrison was basically in charge of like the online stuff for the Xbox One early on. That's why Fable Legends was like an online only like 5v1 weird live service game. And then he was at PlayStation in the early 2000s. Like the PlayStation 3 had a bad launch, obviously. He was there, and he went to Stadia. Like not really a good look, but like watch he'll end up working at Nintendo next. Like how he keeps getting work at like such a high level blows my mind. But yeah, Xbox in a way a better place. And the reason I mention all this is like before the show we're wondering what topics to talk about, and Logan brought up marketing. Now, my biggest complaint with Microsoft for the longest time is that they don't seem to market properly, even though they have a massive marketing team and a marketing budget. And now people are starting to see, and it's April. People are seeing Starfield posters on buses. I saw recently in the supermarket near me, Lucozade has Starfield on the bottle. Again, a game doesn't release till September. So, like, they're going all out with it months in advance. And then, with Redfall, I'm noticing a lot of adverts on YouTube. I don't really watch television, so I can't really say, but on YouTube, there's ads all the time. And people in Australia, I think, were posting images of like staircases with like posters all over this place and stuff. Anyway, it looks like Redfall is actually getting some marketing, which is good. Because again, I remember when Gears 5 was about to come out, I didn't see any advertising for it at all. So it looks like they're learning, which is good. Logan, have you seen any like advertisements for Redfall or Starfield over there?
I saw today some Redfall TV advertisements, which is mind blowing. Like I haven't seen an Xbox commercial like just for a straight up new game in ages. So it's like they're finally taking it to heart. I fully expect Starfield to get stuff. I've seen from other people online, subway stations and trams and stuff with Redfall markings and memorabilia, and then Starfield is blowing up everywhere on buses and other stuff. So I totally expect them to go all in finally on these big titles. It doesn't seem like they want to do it for some of the smaller stuff. But it seems like for these big tentpole, hopefully franchises, that they are finally cashing their chips in now.
Yeah, because let's be honest, like their games do need more marketing, but it's good that they are doing more now because Starfield's going to be big. Like I put it like this: I put out a tweet the other night, and it's still available if people want to see it. And I said like Starfield's going to be the biggest Xbox Game Pass launch to date. It's going to be the biggest RPG of the year, which those are literal facts. And like I didn't really think much about it, and then I went to bed, right? And I get up, and I've got about 200 comments on that post. A lot of people are angry, right? People telling me that I shouldn't be hyped for Starfield. Don't know why. I'm constantly being told I can't be excited, and like clearly Microsoft sees like the value in Starfield because they're doing marketing this early. Like them going from little marketing from something like a household name like Gears to a new IP with Starfield and talking about the game like 6 months or 5 months before it comes out. Like that's a big deal. Like Starfield's obviously going to be big. Seriously, if people want to see some salt, go to my last Starfield post. Wow, like angry, triggered people just over excitement. But yeah, anyway, Redfall, Starfield, it's getting marketing. In the UK, I do not watch TV outside of Game of Thrones. So, like, it's just YouTube and my Disney Plus and Netflix now and then. Other than that, I don't see TV adverts anymore. But yeah, it's good that we're seeing more. And before we get to the next topic, we're about an hour in. If people are enjoying it, please share the show out. It really helps. Like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Super chats are live if you want anything read out or want to support the channel and all that stuff. Anyway, while we're talking about marketing, let's talk about Hi-Fi Rush. This very fun, colourful action game featuring Chai, Peppermint, 808, Kale, a bunch of other characters which have hipster drink names, but it's an amazing game. It's basically music-inspired Devil May Cry. I think that's the best way to put it. The platforming is amazing. The combat is incredible. The animation style is bloody ridiculous. Like, they have 3D animation with cel shading so good it looks like a 2D flat image. Somehow. Like, Logan, isn't that Unreal Engine, or is it their proprietary engine?
I honestly do not know what engine it is, but I do know that it is absolutely incredible aesthetics, visual, gameplay, story, characters. It's as of this moment, it's my game of the year. Like, it's incredible. It feels like you took an OG Xbox, GameCube, or PS2 title from that era and just transported it to now, but with all the modern tech. And it hit the spot at the right time. Just like, wow, this is fun. Like, this isn't some third person, sad dad narrative, or some like the world is so dark and grim and hopeless, or just regurgitated thing that we've done over and over and over again. This was fresh and new, but harkens back to old as well, and just a perfect mix. And please, if you're listening, Tango and Xbox, make some physical merch. My goodness, you know how many of those stuffed cats you would sell? It would be off the chain. Please make a soundtrack, a steelbook, some 808 cats, some figures, some hoodies. You'd make bank on it, seriously. If it's, quote, unsuccessful, I guarantee you would make more than successful on that.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, as you mentioned, that the 808 plush thing, they would make bank on that. Like, it's the amount of people that like have like the cat in their profile picture now, or Peppermint. Like, people love Peppermint, let's be honest. Like, people like all the characters. It's a very original game. Like you're saying, and I've mentioned on Twitter before, like, all third-person games now are these gritty, grimy, realistic-looking third-person games. I love a Plague Tale, but a Plague Tale looks like God of War. God of War looks like The Last of Us. They all have this same grimy, wet, plastic look. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think pushing tech, to these like ultra realistic, visuals is cool, right? But I realized recently, and I talk about Xbox 360 games all the time, right? That during the Xbox 360 generation and PS3, developers weren't trying to make realistic looking characters. They took the hardware that they had and made detailed characters in interesting art styles. So Gears of War, right? This game that people thought was mind-blowing at the time, and it was. It wasn't realistic. It had a very specific art style. Batman Arkham Asylum was probably the best-looking game the year it released, and it wasn't realistic. Same with Arkham City. Again, beautiful game, not realistic. BioShock Infinite, one of the best-looking games ever made. It's not realistic. And it occurred to me recently that with the age of, Unreal Engine 4, Unreal Engine 5, modern age, Crytek, all these new technologies we have, all these developers are pushing for super realistic, gritty, visuals. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the fact that that's all we have. And that's the point I'm trying to drum up on Twitter and make a deal about it, because in the gaming space they should be using these tools to make interesting games. Like, I keep bringing up Hi-Fi Rush because it's different. It's a cel shaded 2D style game, but it's 3D. It looks 2D even though it's 3D. It's that good. Like, in the gaming space, we should want more than this grey look. Oh, look, there's some grey. And whenever I mention the grey comment, people bring up Horizon Zero Dawn. But let's be honest, Horizon Zero Dawn, whatever its sequel's called, they all look the same. it's the same bloody realistic look. And, it's like when I was playing a level of Hogwarts Legacy, there's a part where it's not really a spoiler, there's a part where everything looks like it's hand drawn on paper. And I was thinking, that's so original, and we just don't have that. In Hi-Fi Rush, it's just been great. So why am I bringing up Hi-Fi Rush all of a sudden? Well, Jeff Grubb's been perfectly, cool in the past, and he's been right a lot, right? When I was talking about the Mass Effect remaster coming out, nobody believed me. And then Jeff Grubb came out and said there's going to be a remaster, and then everyone believed him. That stung, by the way, but, I moved on. But, like, he's been reliable in the past, and, like, I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, although I will say this, every insider on Earth predicts a new Switch every 6 months. Just putting it out there. Anyway, he said that Microsoft was unhappy with how Hi-Fi Rush did, and how many it sold, the traction it had, and, how Xbox uses the big sales of a big game like Halo to offset the cost of something like a Hi-Fi Rush. That's essentially what EA did with Mirror's Edge Catalyst. FIFA makes so much money, they were able to put money into, Mirror's Edge again. That's why that game exists, because FIFA does so well. And normally, if something's, right, Microsoft doesn't say a word at all. But Aaron Greenberg the next day said, hey, it was a success. 2 million people played it in, I think, the first week or something. And, like, those were good numbers. And my entire feed for about 2 weeks, and even to this day, is Hi-Fi Rush stuff. So the game did well. Now, my point on the whole topic is that with a game as good as Hi-Fi Rush, these games get play tested early in advance. They get rating from people to see how good it's going to be, right? They basically test reviews. So, like, did the game not review internally that well? Or did they think, hey, a Shadow Drop will be a really cool way to start the year? Because it was. But if it was me, honestly, I'm not even kidding, I would have announced it at the Game Awards. Where everyone had their eyes. And look, I've said a lot about Jeff Keighley's game shows in the past, but, like, that show has a lot of eyes. And if they announced the game in December and released it in January, it would have had a huge pop. So even though it did have a huge pop with its, day one in Game Pass Shadow Drop, I think it should have had some marketing. I do think it should have had a physical release in a collector's edition. And that's basically my part on it. I think Hi-Fi Rush will be an ongoing series. And, another reason I bring this up is that whenever something's been corrected in the past, Microsoft doesn't talk about it. But if it's wrong, they basically say it's not happening. And last week there was a rumor that Tango Gameworks is working on a JRPG, and not a single member of the staff, nobody at Xbox, has disapproved it. So I think the whole JRPG thing is true based on that. And while I do think people, like, look, obviously because Jeff Grubb got things wrong, people are going to meme on him and, like, be mean. But, people get things wrong at the end of the day. But Microsoft came out and corrected it straight away. That's all that matters. It's good to know that the game did well. That's the important part. Logan, what's your thought on this? Because Twitter was kind of wild for a minute.
Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts on it, actually. Like, first off, I think he's a good dude. He's generally pretty accurate on his stuff. There have been some misses, but, most of the people out there, I don't think I've seen one that has a 100% track record on stuff. But he's been pretty accurate. I will say that I think this serves as a really good lesson for anyone out there, especially those with larger accounts and who have a voice that carries weight. Watch what you say. And just, you have to realize, even if you make something as an offhand comment, sometimes people don't take it as that. Or people are just looking for any, nugget of something that they can latch onto and spin into some hate video or campaign against this, or, see, I was right, this is doomed, or, like, whatever. Like, and to his credit, he owned it up. He had released a video, like, a day or two later, said what he meant, He said that I screwed up. I didn't say it the right way. This is what I meant. And he apologized basically and was like, I'm still going to do my job, but this is not how it was meant to be interpreted. And he didn't want Tango and people involved with there being felt like their jobs and their likely livelihood and their status was tenuous or anything. He said that's further from the truth. It's great and this and this. His whole point was it maybe didn't make as much money as it cost or something to that effect. It wasn't like a huge dramatic thing like, wow, this game was a flop. What are we doing? It like people spun it out to be. And I think that's a good lesson for everyone. Just especially those with larger accounts, just be careful what you say because people listen to you. Like for example, you got in sports, you got Waj and Shams for NBA Twitter and stuff, where those guys, have all the deals, all the trades, all the transactions from the league, updates, yada, yada, yada. If they mention something in an offhand comment or an interview or something, you're like, okay, this is something I need to pay attention to. Versus, John Doe from Charlotte has some podcast and he mutters something and people are like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's just be careful is all I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with this stuff because, like, a few years ago when I said that, the Mass Effect remaster is going to happen, I had legit 100% confirmation it was happening. I didn't have a name, I just knew it was going to happen. And, the fact that it was, like, delayed to make the first game better, which they really improved on that first game. And it's like, I've had bad information in the past, which I've been kind of sus about, right? Like, I heard ages ago that Microsoft was working on an Xbox mini console that would attach to your Xbox One and it would play 360 games. I never talked about it because it sounded like utter bullcrap. Right? I've been told, like, I put it like this, and I won't say who, someone kept telling me for about a year straight that there was a Perfect Dark game in development in 2015. This was before I was doing content regularly, so I was being given this information for some reason. And I just never believed him. It never turned out to be anything. It just was what it was. But, like, I put it like this. Like, Logan, you've obviously seen this. I'm bet everyone in chat's seen this. We hear about a Switch Pro or Switch 2 or Super Switch or Mega Switch about every month. And every single month, there's been no news about a Mega Switch, a Super Switch, or Switch 2 or Switch Pro. It's not happening
Yeah,
yet.
the Switch Pros, the GTA leaks, are they finally bringing back this long lost franchise that we hope is resurrected? Like, are they doing Killer Instinct or is Banjo coming back or just Sly Cooper or Silent Hill or it's like whatever. There's like a whole handful of things you can just throw out there and you'll auto get clicks, even if it's a regurgitated, hey, we hope this thing actually happens, and that's the piece in the end. It's a way to drum up interest most of the time when there's frankly nothing there.
Yeah, and by the way, the Switch thing and if there's no news, you're guaranteed to hear about a Switch. GTA 6 is around the corner, like one of those things or both. Maybe GTA 6 running on a Super Switch, like the Xbox Pro, the PlayStation 5 Pro. Although let's face it, the PlayStation 5 Pro is probably going to happen every time Tom Henderson on Twitter posts something about hardware. It's kind of came true, so that's why I believe that. Although, funny enough, there hasn't been any rumors about an Xbox Pro console. By the way, I've ranted about this before, and I'm going to do it again. I don't think there's any market right now for a Pro console on either side. Developers need to use the power of the consoles we already have, and they aren't doing that. The tools need to be improved upon, and it'll get there. I'll put it like this. During the Xbox, bit of a tangent, during the Xbox 360 generation, we had generational jumps in the same generation. If you look at Halo 4 and compare it to something like, trying to think of what's an early Xbox? Oh, Prey. Now, if you compare
Oblivion,
or Oblivion, if you compare Oblivion to Skyrim, it's a generational jump in the same generation. Look at Mass Effect 1 and then Mass Effect 3. Way different in visuals. And now we are just expected to buy new hardware so they can just, slap on more resolution. Like, and by the way, nobody has an 8K TV at the minute. Like, they're overpriced. Nobody's making content for them. So it's like the pro consoles don't need to exist because the developers can get more out of these consoles. I wasn't going to make the pro console thing a topic this week, but it just blows my mind because every single time someone asks on Twitter, it's like, "Hey, would you buy a PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox?" Oh, are we really going to call it a Series Y? Can we not call it a Series Y, please? Call it XX. I don't know. But like, there's always replies saying, "Yeah, I want to buy a Super Xbox Series X Pro, PlayStation 5 Mega Edition, or whatever." And it's like, do people really want to? Every game this generation has been delayed. Hogwarts Legacy, Gotham Knights, all those games were meant to release like 2 years ago. Like, hell, I bet Star Wars Jedi Survivor would have came out about a year ago if it wasn't for the pandemic. But like, no, we need more hardware. And I say this as someone that knows that hardware in thumbnails gets more views. That's just it. Next time you see an AI generated PlayStation 5 Pro, that person is getting more views because there's hardware in the thumbnail. It just is what it is, unfortunately. You know what? I can't remember what we were talking about.
We were talking hardware, if you would want a mid-gen refresh or not. And, if you believe it or not, and we're basically talking about how there's always a handful of topics that just get thrown out there when news is kind of dead. And that, like, GTA 6 leaks or a Switch console or whatever. And basically just talking about how be careful what you say, that this is why if we talk about things, a lot of times we'll say it's a quote rumor. It's not, until it's proven accurate, because you put a disclaimer on it. You're careful. And I'm glad Aaron Greenberg came out and definitively said, yeah, that's hogwash. That's not accurate. It was a 100% mega success in all key statistics that we measure. And then, like, even some other people from the Xbox brass and side of things had some spicy things to say about it too. They weren't really thrilled with how that came out. So it's just lesson learned, and I'm excited. I love Hi-Fi Rush. Again, please release the physical merch. We're begging. And anime, please. A show for Hi-Fi Rush would do like Cyberpunk Edgerunners. It would be incredible. Like, make it happen. Come on.
Yeah, the good news is Hi-Fi Rush is doing well, and it's probably an active franchise from now on. Like, people love those characters. In fact, I've not heard any bad thing said about Hi-Fi Rush. Not the characters, not the voice acting, not the story, gameplay, visuals, anything. And that's a next-gen only game. Like it's a beautiful game, and for some reason, like as we were talking about the name of an Xbox mid-generation refresh, for some reason, I think it came to mind the Xbox Series XXX, The Return of Xander Cage. I don't know why. I just pictured.
I think they'd have to be careful with that badging in the States anyway.
Yeah, special Vin Diesel edition, XXX. I don't know why that film came to mind. It's not that bad, actually. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, so revenue, Xbox revenue situation. Logan, now I just found out about this literally before we went live. What's the deal?
Basically, their subscriptions and stuff have gone up. Their consoles have gone down, and it's due to a supply shortage for the stuff they need to make consoles, and they're hopeful to get it addressed soon. But, overall, it was apparently the second strongest quarter ever for Xbox. So it's kind of, on one hand, it seems confusing when you're like, wait a minute, I'm reading these areas, they say down, and one of them says up. But you've made more than you have every other quarter but one. So, but then they came out and explained it, Satya and then Amy Hood. and other key Xbox execs in charge of, overseeing all the financials and stuff like that, have basically said they're in a great place. That first party content with Redfall, Starfield, other things coming soon are expected to prop it up, and that they expect it to be an even bigger quarter four. And they're excited, and that they had a above anticipated success in monetization of their games, which to me, like, not reading the details on the surface, it kind of seems like, maybe like we talked about, like the deluxe pack for like Hi-Fi Rush,
Yeah.
or an expansion for something, or skins in Halo Infinite or something like that. Like, apparently with the Game Pass model, it has driven a renewed vigor in that type of accessory content for games.
So we're right, basically. Yeah. Those DLC packs for the digital deluxe versions, like Microsoft puts a lot of stuff in those things, like the incentivize people. So like it's clearly working, and they haven't really had a big game yet. Like outside of, actually, Logan, what was the last big AAA like Xbox release?
Um, Gosh,
Was it Halo
Triple
Infinite?
A. Yeah, Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, uh, Flight Simulator, like those are the bigger ones. But and then they've had Pentiment and stuff like that. But like as far as like major like AAA, it's been a minute. So
Yeah,
I expect Redfall to do big numbers.
yeah. I mean, like everyone can be honest. Like Microsoft's 2021, they didn't have a strong first party AAA output. They did have some smaller titles, but we all knew that anyway. So like Microsoft haven't had big games to sell around their titles, because if you think about it, what are the big games that really push hardware sales? Let's be honest, it's Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty, FIFA. I assume Madden does the same in the US. Like those are the big marketed titles, and then they have their exclusives. Well, Microsoft hasn't been marketing with, FIFA, as far as I know. Call of Duty, that's with PlayStation, and their next big release is Redfall. And it's a strong year for them. They have Forza coming out, and Starfield, and potentially Hellblade. There is that rumor. So like, while the numbers are down, they're still good. So, like, obviously, if you go into reset hour, it's the end of the world, by the way. I've already seen 2 threads on how Microsoft's going to sell off the division. It ain't
Only
happening.
two.
Yeah, only 2. The thing is, it's not even a bad situation. It's like Microsoft, like, if Sony has, like, no games at all, they still have their marketing deals for Call of Duty. Like, Call of Duty is a big game. It sells millions of consoles. And that's the situation for Sony so far. But Microsoft, they had some smaller releases, and the big releases start next week. Yeah, next week. So, yeah, I don't think people should be surprised. And it just is what it is. And one of the reasons why I talk about that is that, it's obviously important for Microsoft to have big releases, not just first party, but also have Game Pass releases, because people do buy the console for Game Pass. And Microsoft, for a long time now, have not had not really any big third-party games in Game Pass since Atomic Heart. Not really. They've had like ports of, Monster Hunter Rise and all that stuff. And the reason I bring this up is because it kind of came to light today that not only does Sony pay to keep games off Game Pass, and this leads to with Square Enix, Sony pays to keep franchises off Xbox specifically. Completely, so they can go to Luna on Amazon. They can go to Stadia, even though that's dead. They can go to Nintendo, but specifically kept from Xbox. And what's funny is, if people can still find my tweet, it's like 3 hours old or something. I made a post about it, and people's reaction to how Microsoft buys studios and people port beg the games. They say how it's the best. Oh yeah, I meant 2022 before. It's weird. I'm still not used to saying 2023. Weird times. Anyway, so where was I going with this? Okay, yeah. So people were okay with Sony paying for exclusivity, but also paying to keep the game specifically off Xbox. but people do not like the fact that Microsoft wants to buy studios. Like, I feel like I've woke up in Crazyville, and I'm the only one that's sane, because that makes no bloody sense. How is it okay to pay to keep games specifically off one platform, but not okay to own studios? Because people keep bringing up, oh, but the $69 billion acquisition, that doesn't matter. The games are still going to PlayStation. Call of Duty's still going to PlayStation. Diablo is. Overwatch. Whatever else they make, the games that's currently in development for PlayStation. So, like, there's no comparison. But it's shady. Like, Sony gets looked at as the darlings of the game industry, right? They get looked at in such a positive light, despite the fact they do dodgy things. They lied about the PSP numbers in the 2010s. The PlayStation Vita didn't get the support it was promised. Remember the 2011 PSN hack? Remember how they had people's information stolen for 2 weeks and didn't let anyone know? I remember. It was all forgiven because they are the darlings of the industry, even though they paid their way into the industry and everyone pretends that they didn't, right? You have these high-profile Xbox accounts that do not acknowledge it, even though there's videos out there of people, including, I think, Phil Howson, saying in the early days of PlayStation that they signed studios and signed exclusivity with third-party publishers, but people forget it and overlook it because PlayStation's PlayStation. They overlook it because they are the darlings of the industry. And the reason I always mention this is because there's always pushback. If you say anything negative about PlayStation or if you mention the truth, they deny it. And that what I saw today is the dodgiest bloody thing I've seen in a while. Sony can buy whatever studios they want, and they can keep those games and nobody will question them. Spider-Man never comes to Xbox, never gets questioned. Final Fantasy made by Square Enix, never coming to Xbox. Okay, people just acknowledge it. Microsoft buys a studio and people port beg and wonder why is it coming to only Xbox. Remember how Microsoft bought Bethesda? And for a year straight almost, like 6 months or something, we saw IGN, GameSpot, and all these other big media outlets constantly ask Phil Spencer, hey, is this game also coming to PlayStation? Like, again, I feel like I've woke up in Crazyville, right? It makes no sense. And then I see that today, and it's just mind-boggling. Like, they've been getting away with this stuff for years, and like, people will hear what I'm saying and just assume I'm a hater. I was a PlayStation kid. I loved PlayStation as a kid. If someone says PlayStation, for some reason, I think Colony Wars and G-Police, because I put, let's be honest, ridiculous hours back then into those games, but they used to pay for exclusivity. Tomb Raider was on the Sega Saturn, and then they paid for exclusivity for Tomb Raider 2. It never went to Sega Saturn. And it happened for dozens of different games, and they owned that generation pretty much because of they were just paying for it. Sony had so much money in the 90s because when you bought an electrical product, you had to buy the Sony thing. You were getting a stereo, you had to buy the Sony product. You were going to get a TV, it was either Philips or Sony. At least that's how it was in the UK. And you're going to buy like a microwave, it was a Sony product. A Walkman, of course, it was a Sony product. Sony had so much money to burn in the 90s that they were able to do this. They were able to get exclusivity for those games. GTA 3 was exclusive to Xbox, or say PlayStation, for ages. Same with San Andreas and Vice City and all that stuff. Because they had the money, because every product that you wanted to own in the 90s was made by Sony. That was the situation. Hell, I had Sony a CD like Walkman device in like the late 2000s, because I used to prefer the sound of CDs over MP3s. That's a story for another day. But like, Sony owned hardware back then, and they could pay for all this exclusivity. But now they just looked at as the darlings that they grow. I'm doing air quotes organically, and they get away with it. They bought Bungie. No one batted an eye. Do you know what's the least organic thing about that? The fact that Sony went out of their way to buy the studio that made Halo. I'm sorry, but there's nothing organic about that. And you can have all these people on Twitter and YouTube that will defend it, but there's nothing organic about Sony buying the developers of Halo. Nothing at all. And they get away with it. Like, they've bought, 9 studios in the past year? Nobody bats an eye. Nobody bats an eye. Wolverine's going to be a PlayStation exclusive. The last Wolverine game was on everything. I think I had it on GameCube and on Xbox, and it's been going on for ages. They get away with everything, and people hate it when you mention it because guess what? Sony blacklists people if you don't give them all the praise. They don't get review codes. Remember how GameSpot, I believe it was GameSpot at the time, gave The Last of Us a lower score than everyone else? That person got fired. Like, but they get away with this stuff. They are the industry darlings. They can't do any wrong, and it's ridiculous. And before I continue ranting, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W, the legend, $4.99. They came into the industry because Nintendo screwed them over, and ended up going to Philips for the CD, for the SNES. That's true. That is true. And they used their power. Like Sony were one of the biggest companies in the 90s. And by the way, thank you Nick W for the $4.99 super chat. Like Sony had so much money back. I remember as a kid, we had everything Sony. Like, and we weren't rich, by the way, as a family in the 90s. Like I remember as a kid, like my family got the Sony surround system for the living room. We had the Sony television. We had the Sony everything because Sony was the brand. The brand. Like, hell, if you bought DVDs in the early 2000s, do you know inside the case it said, you need a PlayStation 2 or a DVD player? Like, they had so much power back then. They could get away with everything. And, Logan, I need a drink because I've been ranting for 10 minutes. Like, what's your thought on this whole situation? Because there's been many games that haven't came to Game Pass or not come to Xbox at all due to these deals. And the reaction today, like, people are kind of mad and understandable.
Yeah, like it's crazy. I mean, it's sad to see it. That it. I mean, this all started apparently with this thing that's been floating around on the Twitter sphere today, like supposedly some document from some court case involving Sony and a regulatory body. And apparently, there's this document out there that talks about some of their deals and how they supposedly um, pay companies not only to keep things off Game Pass, but to keep them off Xbox. Period. Like they can go to other companies, other platforms, whatever. But Xbox, forget that guy. You don't go anywhere near him. And whether this is 100% true or not, who knows? But that's the thing that's been floating around, and it fits the model and the track record, like from the 90s, like you said. They jumped in by buying one of the biggest publishers out there, Psychogenesis. And then they basically took Final Fantasy from Nintendo. They went guns blazing trying to tear apart their competition. Like Sony long has a thing of destroy the competition, not just be better and stronger than, like just annihilate them. And so that's very much been their business. I mean, it's effective, but for the people who aren't in that ecosystem, it really sucks. And to me, there's a huge difference between you buy a studio or a publisher and you're like, I own this, I can choose what to do with the games I want, versus, like there's 5 different platforms out there, and then this guy lets everybody have them but one kid, and then he tells them take a hike. He's like, yeah, I don't like you, you don't get it. It's like, really? Like, how just, it's rude. I mean, I know that's a goofy word to use for it, but it's icky and gross, and I don't respect it, frankly. But, it sounds like there are some regulators out there who aren't big fans of it. And, there's been stuff with the FTC, the JFTC, senators, activists, other things who have been raising issues and saying, hey, this high performance console market that was suddenly coined to exclude Nintendo for reasons? Yeah, they have a 98% dominance in that. That seems like a monopoly, doesn't it? And so it's raising a royal fit for them. And it's kind of looking at the end of the day that they should have just sat this one out. They should have just said, you know what? We don't like it that they're getting Activision Blizzard, but you know what? We're a proud, prideful, powerful company. that prides ourselves on innovation, we will figure it out and we'll be better for it. They should have taken that route. Instead, they did The Boy Who Cried Wolf all around the world on a globe tour and crying and whining and throwing a fit to anybody who'd listen, town criers in the streets, sackcloth and ashes, just the whole everything is awful routine. And it's like, okay, you got their attention. Congratulations. Now they're like, you know what? Why is this guy throwing such a fit? Let's look into him. And it's the mess around and find out embodied. And it looks like maybe there's a chance this kind of policy won't be happening anymore. Fingers crossed, but they definitely got more than what they wanted.
Yeah, Sony pretty much opened up Pandora's box with this whole situation because now for the first time ever, they're looking into it. So it's a good thing for gamers because at the end of the day, like if someone's listening to this and you're a PlayStation fan, you're still gonna get your JRPGs in the future on your favorite console. But like, I don't understand how is it a bad thing if the Final Fantasy. I'm just using that as a reference, but like, how is it bad if the Final Fantasy fan base gets bigger? Like, even if like they were buying like a year exclusivity, because remember how at the bottom of the Final Fantasy remake case it said like 1 year exclusivity, and then it was 2 years, and now we just don't know, and I think it's just ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. And it's just keep happening. And speaking of all these regulators, I just saw before we went live. Apparently, Microsoft's going to go ahead with the acquisition before letting the FTC finish its thing. What's that about?
Okay, so basically, I think most people who have followed this podcast know, but in case you're new or missed something, it looks like tomorrow the CMA is finally making their decision, and we will know one way or another tomorrow whether it passes with concessions, or they have problems with it in the UK. And even if there were problems with it in the UK, they could take it to court, but it would drag it out forever. But it looks like they're going to pass it with concessions. That's the vibes, and what the local reports and everything seem to be indicating is that they will pass it with concessions. Until it happens, you don't know, but it looks that way. So that's going to happen. And then the next month is the EU, and they're likely to pass it with concessions. And so it looks like, assuming that those two go Microsoft's way, that Microsoft will go to the FTC and go, look, we have the two other biggest regulatory agencies in the world sign off on this deal, and they don't see anything illegal or wrong or monopolistic with this, to the point that they weren't allowing us to pass it. As long as we did some concessions, it's okay. So either A, you accept our concessions that we gave to these people, or we'll take you to court and we will win because you don't have a case, and everybody knows it. That's basically what they're putting on that front. Whether they would do that or not remains to be seen, but the reports are that they would take them to court or say, what are you going to do, sue me? And basically close the deal and see if they would actually sue them and take them to court or not. That's, in essence, what it seems to be.
I mean, another step closer to this finishing's just great, to be honest, because, like, I remember a year ago when the whole thing was announced, I thought it'd be done by the summer. Oh, how wrong was I? But yeah, it's been going on long, and, like, if anything, this whole Activision deal with, Microsoft, it's really opened the door to show people the whole Sony side of the situation, because, like, we just didn't know the situation with Square Enix, like, at all. Like, to this day, people still tell me we should support Square Enix games because that's the only way we'll get them. But how do we get them if they're not allowed to put them on the console? So it doesn't matter if, let's say, Crisis Core sells 100 million copies on Xbox. Microsoft still can't get the remake of 7. So why are we buying their games? Now, granted, I've said this before. I've had clips on during the podcast. Like, I think Crisis Core is amazing, but the fact that we don't get the follow up, the fact that the clip that plays after the credits is from the remake. Like, it's a bit insulting, to be honest. Like, although I will say, if people want to get that game, get in the sale. Incredible. 20-hour long Final Fantasy game. But yeah, the FTC thing, the CMA thing, it looks like it's finally coming to a close. Who knows? Maybe by the end of the summer, it should all be done. It will be interesting though, because if Sony's been ignoring all of this stuff, and they've been unwilling to talk to Activision and Microsoft regarding the whole Activision thing, does that mean Microsoft still has to do a 10-year deal, or does that mean it's just open?
Well, I think there's two schools of thought on that. I think one is like you could be totally petty and say, well, if we pass it and they remove the console theory of harm as a problem, then you know what? Forget them. We're not going to give them Call of Duty. But on the other hand, they'd be missing lots of money and lots of revenue and players and engagement and stuff. And the fact that they have given their word countless times that they will not do that. So I think at the very least, it will stay as is for a while till maybe next gen. Then maybe there's a different conversation. But for now, if you've spent a year plus in all these courts, talking to all these people across the world and signing deals and giving your word, which means something to people, that we will keep this game on this platform, then I think if they were to try to pull a fast one and go, see, deal's done. Forget you, Sony. You're not getting caught at all. Like, as funny as that would be, and as much of an epic troll that would be, I think that would be basically setting them up to never be trusted again by these regulators. And they just can't afford that. So I think they will honor their deal, even though Sony has been a royal pain about this.
Yeah, and if you really think about, let's say, a 10-year deal from this November or whatever, when the next Call of Duty comes out. If you think about it, 10 years from now, so let's say next generation starts in 2028, and then the next generation after that starts in another 6 years, Microsoft could potentially kick off the year after the next generation after that with Call of Duty as an exclusive title. Potentially. I mean, who knows if that does happen? Twitter or whatever social media we're using by then, holograms or something. Man, that will be a wild day. Because if people think exclusivity over Starfield was mad, imagine Call of Duty. Oh, I kind of want it to happen just to see the reaction. But no, they should honor the deal. And to be fair, like, that's how they'll make deals in the future. Like, keep things solid, keep true to your word. That's how they do business. Unfortunately, Microsoft, for the past few years, they've been honest about stuff, so it's good for everyone. Again, it looks like it'll be. I have to say this. Hacky Saxon chat wrote 10 years from now. Do we have a new Elder Scrolls? Yeah, barely, just it'll release, but.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about anyway. Maybe I'll talk about it next week. But games like Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, those games are years away. We don't have to worry about them for a while. Fortunately, you have Obsidian that can pump out a new game with a small team in a small amount of time, relatively. So, like, I honestly think that in the future we will see a Fallout game this generation by Obsidian. Putting it out there. I think it's likely, maybe a New Vegas 2 or something. And, speaking of IPs and stuff, shift gears a bit before we end. So there was a recent job listing at Playground Games for someone to help continue flighting. Now, flighting's Microsoft's internal term for basically testing the game out, so to speak. And it looks like there's internal flights going on for Fable. Now, Fable was announced a while ago, and we have no news on it at all. There's barely any concept art. Nobody's really talking about it. They are still hiring for major roles for the game. So it's like, when does the game come out? And like, when are we going to hear about it? Because Microsoft has a tendency to either be really upfront and show us a game way in advance, like they have done in the past, or they're gonna let us know basically the releases. And with them doing internal flights, Logan, do you think Fable is at all relatively near?
I think we will get it this generation, but as for how near it is, I'm not sure because like I know this isn't a popular point to make probably, but it's accurate. Like look at, Guerrilla Studios for PlayStation. Like they went from Killzone series to Horizon series. And that's a completely different genre, gameplay, aesthetics, movement, mechanics, lighting, art, everything is way way different from a studio that had an FPS expertise to go to a action kind of RPG style game. Like imagine going from a highly technical, highly razor focused racing open world just, arcade racer sim type game and experience to an RPG. And then you mix in all the humor and the aesthetics and just like all of what made Fable Fable. But they've never done an RPG before. So to me, it's perfectly reasonable that this game in particular is taking a really long time. Plus, you basically add an extra 2 years because of the pandemic. So, I mean, that just is how it's gone for gaming. So, to me, I think Fable comes before the end of the generation. But if, as for like this year or next year, I think it's at least 2 years out still.
Yeah, I think them having it so far out. It's not really the worst thing in the world because, like you're saying, like this is their first RPG. It's a big deal. I've always wondered like how does the Forza tool set go towards an RPG? Maybe they have really good tools for RPGs in there, but um, I honestly don't know because they've been so quiet for that game for so long that it's just hard to tell. And just when I saw that job listing today, it just made me think like, what exactly are they like trying internally? Are they play testing just base gameplay? The thing they do out of the gate. It could be anything. But the good news is that they are making progress. Thankfully, in the meantime, we are going to have things like Avowed. Like Avowed's been rumored for early next year. That's been going on a while. Hellblade 2. I'm putting this out there. I'm 90% confident that Hellblade releases this November. Like, maybe it's a good feeling. It's no like insider crap or anything, but something about it, like the way they put out that video a few weeks ago, just makes me think it's coming out this year. Like, Logan, do you think we're actually going to see Hellblade this year?
I'll put it this: I'd be completely shocked if we didn't see it at their summer showcase. Like, if Hellblade 2 is not at that showcase, then I'd be, some spidey sense would be going off, and I'd be like, all right, this is kind of funny. Why is Hellblade 2 not here? It's been a minute. The game should be out soon. I would be concerned if I didn't see it at the summer event. So I fully expect that it will be here either late this year or early next year. But I think November's the sweet spot for it. Holiday 2023.
Yeah, and honestly, like that game's going to be probably one of the best looking games ever made when it releases. So it's exciting times ahead. And I have to say, before we end the show, it looks like the pre-download, or should I say the pre-install, is now live for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So if you've got 140 gigabytes spare, now's the best time to get downloading. Because that's going to take a while to download, especially for me anyway, because my internet's crap on a Wednesday for some reason. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to add to the show before we close?
No, just be kind to each other and just just as some, I guess, advice. Like tomorrow, if the news is great, be really excited about the CMA decision, and if it's not great, it's okay. And we'll still have games coming for the platform, and we'll be able to do still enjoy the hobby we love. It'll be a little different than what we were hoping, but if it's bad news, then It is what it is, and the sky is not falling. But if it's good news, celebrate. But enjoy some fun abs or here and there, but don't do anything too crazy. Just like relax, and it is what it is.
Yeah, good times ahead, and I think people need to chill about it. But yeah, back to the whole Oxenfree thing at the beginning. People be vocal if you want that game to come to Xbox. Be respectful. Developers actually do listen to that stuff. If you're being annoying, they just mute you or block you or both or whatever. But yeah, again, everyone in chat's been awesome today. We'll be back at the same time next week. Star Wars Jedi Survival have been out a few days by then. And I'll normally I'll do like 10 to 15 minutes of gameplay for the podcast, and it's usually on a loop. For next week, I'll try and get half an hour of gameplay altogether. A lot of Star Wars in there, no spoilers, all that stuff. Just gameplay, cool scenes and all that stuff. But yeah, anyway, I'll be on Twitter. Logan will be on Twitter. Our links in the description down below. I have a video coming out by the next podcast. I think if people are looking forward to certain games coming out in May, 10 games specifically, I've got you covered. Anyway, we'll be back at the same time next week. We are out. Peace, everybody.